Hello, Miss Malervili from Cambodia, Phnom Penh no less. How are you this evening?
Good evening. Good. I'm just so grateful that I have connection. Yes, I'm very grateful. I think it's all the good vibes that have been sending out, and like, because yesterday we didn't have good connection.
Oh, there you go. And it's been a while. Both of us have co-hosted an episode of this show, right? Of Leadership in Flow Asia. Been a while, hey?
I've been thinking about Soffian so much that I didn't think about you, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. I will see what I can do to get it back. Pay
It's
back.
okay. I
Pay
pay
back.
the price.
Okay.
All
All right. Sofia and I were having a chat at the back end. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Leadership in Flow Asia. We are in the month of August with the theme of purposeful leadership. And today's topic is future proofing a nation. And we have a very interesting guest. Our guest is Soffian Amin from HRD Corp. For those of us who are in Malaysia, who are either on the employers' side of the fence or on the training providers of the fence, HRD Corp is a very familiar name. You may or may not know Soffian Amin. I'm sure you know because he's a very key figure in the boot camps that HRD Corp arranges and also all the events. Now, who's Soffian? I just found out that the gentleman in question, he graduated with an engineering degree. All right. Worked in engineering, yeah, and then moved to operations with an organization, a local organization, and facilities. And then what happened was he was told there was an interesting position at HRD Corp, and he moved. All right. And that's an interesting story. And he said, you know what? Operations management, same. As long as you know the fundamentals, you can put it anywhere, put it to work anywhere. But we're going to talk about we're not going to talk about operations management. Today, we're going to talk about what and how he thinks about future proofing a nation. I'm going to bring Soffian up and let's shift the bit here, make you go to this side and pull up. Soffian, yes. Okay, I'm demoting
Yeah.
you.
So
I'm demoting you, Malar. There we go.
happy to
There we
be
go.
promoted for Soffian.
There you go. Okay.
I know you did an amazing introduction about Soffian, but I have to do my part as a Malaysian. Okay, so I must say this. So every time I go into meetings where I meet at that time, Inji Soffian, what I remember about him is that he never shies away from any question. Neither does he. So he's the one who will say, "Okay, send me the question, and I'll get back to you."
Yeah,
And he always gets.
and he neither that or he. Sorry, Malar, carry on.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I was really truly impressed. And of course, in Soffian, it's also, you've been very encouraging since we met you at the boot camp. to have actually come into our conference to support us, right, and to give us his inputs. So without further ado, I had to say it because that's something I really appreciate about you.
Pressure.
With that,
Thank you, Malha.
he
Finally, we
doesn't
get
know
to
how
talk.
to respond the compliment. Let's get on straight into why we are here, and get the most out of this conversation, because you have Bhavani Periyasamy, we have Captain Shanmurthy, Dr. Vicky, who has already come in to say they're looking forward for the conversation. Okay, so Sham, you want to just take it on and ask the first question?
Okay, so I think let's start with the big picture a little bit. Considering that your role in your current role, right, as a Chief Programs Officer at the HRD Corp, right? What help us understand how does that role, or how you see that role play its part in human capital development in Malaysia, from the context of Malaysia?
Okay. I think before we even go into the current position, I mean, most people know me from my previous position. That's where I've been for the past, 6-7 years. So I'm more or less synonymous with that. Some people still think that I'm still there. So I actually came into HRD Corp as head of at that time was the vendor management. I was talking to Sham about this. When I first accepted the job offer from HRD Corporation, HRDF at that time, they actually offered me a role in vendor management department. And then caught me a little bit off guard because where I came from before that, vendor management always refers to procurement. And as Sham rightly pointed out, I spent a bit of time in repairs and maintenance, operations and maintenance. So we deal a lot with procurement. So before joining HRD Corp, by actually getting that letter, I actually went out and called up all my old procurement buddies. Guys, help me out. It seems that I accepted a job for which I knew very little. And only when I joined HRD Corp, then I realized in HRD Corp, vendor actually refers to only one particular sort of vendor. I mean, you guys are so special, they actually created a department just for you. Vendor in HRD Corp refers to training providers. So that's what I've been doing before this. I've always been managing, for lack of a better word, training providers in the country. So we register them, we register the courses and all of that. So that's what I've been doing for the longest time. I think one of the things I've done before this also, for which I've been equally praised and whacked for, was to introduce the trainers development framework. So that's another thing that I did. Because before me, HRD Corp only concentrated on training providers. When I came in, I thought that it was just as important that we looked at trainers and how do we build trainers, how do we ensure that we have the best trainers to drive the human capital agenda of the country. So that's what I've been doing for the longest time. And of course, as you all pointed out, there was a change of role recently. I think it's close to my 3rd month now as a Chief Programs Officer. So programs, it's a bigger part of which the what they call it, the training market is still a part of it. So the training providers and trainers is still under me. The trainers development framework is still under my care. Training providers registration is all under my care. But I've also taken on additional roles in terms of managing the operations of our HRD Corp. I would say HRD Corp bread and butter, because our bread and butter is actually the disbursement of the levy that we collect. So my function here is to ensure that all the levy that we collected is disbursed in a proper way to quality trainers conducting quality programs under quality training providers. So you asked about how that role contributes to the overall human capital development in the country. Again, I believe that you have an audience not only from Malaysia. I mean, Sham, you're in Singapore, where I was born, by the way. Just to let you know that we collect in Malaysia, the HRD Corporation, we collect a levy to drive human capital development in the country. But we cover a large part of the country now because of we are governed by an act, and the act has been recently expanded and all of that. So we collect that levy from all companies registered under us. We refer to these companies as employers, and of course, once the purpose of that money is to encourage companies to actually send their people for training. Because you like it or not, you give us your money, you might as well send your people for training so you can get your money back. So that's the whole idea behind it. So my job is to ensure that the money is disbursed properly, meaning that we want to make sure that the trainers conducting the training are high quality trainers, competent trainers. The training providers offering the training are good companies, credible companies, companies of integrity. And we also want to make sure that the courses being offered are high quality courses with proper learning outcomes and things like that. So we drive human capital from that point of view. So at the moment, there are 82,000 companies, 4-point-something million employees covered under HRD Corp. So my job is basically to ensure that the money is disbursed properly to these people, to ensure that as many as possible out of that 4+ million people are trained and upskilled and reskilled properly. So that in a nutshell is my role. I also do other things like training verification and compliance and enforcement, to look into the integrity of the whole thing, to look at the governance, to make sure that the trainings that happen are done properly. But by and large, as you can hear, it's all about the training. So my part is basically just that whole part from the time that the training provider is registered till when the training has occurred and the money is disbursed through claims.
I remember when HRDF at that point in time came into existence, right? And it started off with the manufacturing industry, and it was very much focused on technical skills, and then it moved to obviously the non-technical skills, or what we call power skills right now, right? In terms of development. So given that, I mean, I think it was in, if I'm not mistaken, probably early 90s. Right.
Yeah.
95 thereabouts that it came into existence, right? And so there's that track record. That's nearly 20 years. That's about 20 years. And also what it has now grown, right? Not just manufacturing, it's covering all industries, mostly all employers, organizations. What's the landscape like? What's the patterns that you are seeing and you are picking out, and you're saying, in terms of leadership, from the perspective of leadership awareness, leadership skills, leadership knowledge, how do we stand? How does Malaysia stand in relation to Asian countries? All right. How sensitive, how peka are we, in terms of, see, the we comes back again, the leadership awareness, skills, and knowledge, right? What does it feel like for you? How would you judge it? How would you draw it out for us?
Okay. Before I answer that, Sham, are you looking to join me?
No. I'm looking to join you.
All this we stuff.
Yeah. That's a different story. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Right. Okay. So going back to that, I mean, if you look at studies conducted everywhere, regionally, locally, I think Asian School of Business have done a study before. World Economic Forum has done a study before. Malaysian Institute of Management has done a study before, and they will tell you that Malaysians in general are aware of their own leadership skills and knowledge, and they're generally satisfied. But the studies will also tell you that there is room for improvement, especially when it comes to what they call leadership in the digital age. But from HRD Corp point of view, what we can see is that you talk purely from a point of view from how the training levy is utilized, is used. You can see that by and large, a lot of this training claims disbursement, levy disbursement that we do caters for what I would call regulatory courses. So you're talking about courses that are required by law, like health and safety and what do you call it, environmental, things like that. There is some part of it that goes towards leadership, but frankly not that much. We have seen a shift recently because, as you pointed out, we started off with manufacturing and there's been expansion and expansion. But recently, the biggest expansion of our act to date has happened, I think, about more or less 2 years ago, when some of when the financial sector actually came in. And then from what I can see, that banking sector tends to spend more on leadership programs. So there is a shift in that. Because we have to understand that manufacturing and services, you're talking about a lot of smaller size companies, SMEs. So by largely SMEs do not really spend a lot on leadership. It's more skewed towards skills development and of course regulatory courses, as well as general soft skill development, or maybe what you call power skills. So well, I think there is room for that. But having said that, when HRD Corp does programs using government funding, government funded programs, we can see that there is actually a large demand for leadership program. It's just that it does not quite translate into the levy. I don't know, maybe there are a few possible reasons for this. One being that how much you can spend from the levy depends on how much you can actually correct. So the levy for again, for you Malaysians out there, you would know this, is you're talking about 1% of your payroll every month is contributed, which is really not that much. So imagine a company with 1% of their annual payroll budget as their training budget is really not much at all. And some high-end leadership programs are really not cheap. So that was why we push in the past. We have done so, and in the foreseeable future, we will continue to do so, to push leadership programming, leadership capacity building through the funded programs, strategic programs. But levy-based programs, for a few reasons, one of that being that it's not really very popular. We are hoping that we are pushing more. On HRD Corp point of view, while we say that we are here, I mean, in fact that is our task. Our responsibility is the upskilling of the Malaysian workforce, to move the Malaysian workforce up the value chain, to ensure that we have a highly skilled Malaysian workforce. But at the same time, within that group there are smaller groups that are of particular interest to us, and one of those is the small and medium enterprises. So one of our goals is the leadership capacity building for SMEs, and that in the months to come, in the years to come, you will see rejuvenation or maybe even new initiatives by HRD Corp pushing towards this. But like I said, it's something that it's there, but it's probably something that we need to work on as a nation.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, until you said it and laid it out the way you did, the assumption is that one, there is enough funding or budget to do the type of training that crosses beyond just technical, the whole range of interventions. That's one. Number two is it's where people's focus still remain or still reside, because there either is a budget constraint or because we come from we are in an industry which is technical, we kind of look at that and not consider the other aspects of it. So that's an interesting perspective. Malar, I'm going to hand over to you because I've got a quote that I want to put in while you ask that question. And before I hand over to you, there is someone who said hello and good evening, and we unfortunately can't see it on this app, but I want to say hello to Muhammad Noor Nabiul Hassan. Thank you for joining us. And put your questions down because Soffian will be more than happy to answer it. Cakap saja. As if I put it there. Okay, Malar, sorry. Go ahead, Malar.
Okay, thank you. Wow. So I loved the way you actually help us transition in terms of how we are thinking in terms of training and in terms of HRD Corp's role, right? Very, very clear. I loved it. But, you did say that, there is a constraint of budget. And when there's a constraint, naturally what happens is that you pay attention to what is compulsory, what is
Mm,
covered,
mm,
right? I mean, that's a natural way. And this is why I think organizations like HRD Corp becomes very important, because you set the pace and path for people to, or leaders in organization, to think about. So a lot of times when you set the pace, what people within organizations or leaders within organization do is, okay, we need to meet the expectation that is set by the powerful person here. In this case, where training is concerned, is HRD Corp, because you actually have set the boundaries how things need to operate, which is actually your role, right? So having said that, and having said the budget constraint and how leadership programs are coming through, how we're looking at what is compulsory, right? You would have, I'm sure, in getting the training providers to, provide quality training, and for employers to get the best training possible, because that's really the match that you're making well with all the rules that you're making, right? And as you speak to business leaders within the country, what are some business challenges you think Malaysian leaders are probably undermining? Because I think what HRD Corp does is that you look at what is the current need to be relevant, to upskill, but you're also looking at future proofing us. And sometimes we're not able to see that, right? So, having spoken to leaders, right, what are some things that you think we are still undermining at this moment, post pandemic?
Okay. Right. So I'm going to have to speak from HRD Corp officer point of view now, because that's the way it is. If you look at, I mean, if you've been reading this, there's been a lot being said currently about how we need to restart the country, how we need to improve the economic situation in the country, how we need to attract foreign direct investments and things like that. There's a lot being said at the moment. I think if you were at the boot camps, you've heard me talk about it also. One concern that we sometimes see, and I think you kind of nailed it, Mala. HRD Corp and the government in general is always thinking about the future. Okay, because it's not just about making sure that the current workforce meets the requirements. We have to make sure the future workforce also meets the requirements. For the simple reason that if we are not prepared for the future, it's going to become increasingly difficult to get foreign investment. Okay, I mean, you've heard the stories. Tesla is coming, nice, but Tesla is only coming to sell cars. Tesla is not coming to build cars in Malaysia. So those are the things, for the simple reason that sometimes we are lacking in terms of higher end skilled workforce and things like that. So when you look at it, I think, and this is an easy and very understandable thing to fall into, because when you talk about business leaders, the key word here is business. Leaders' first and utmost priority is to ensure that their business thrives for the now and for the near future. Okay, and that means using whatever that is necessary from the resources to ensure that business continues to be good, or continues to survive and to strive. It is not often that businesses build for the further future. Okay, and let me just rephrase that in case anybody misunderstands. I'm speaking purely from a training and human capital development point of view. So businesses, number one, for the smaller businesses, sometimes human capital development is not even a priority for them, because again, business leaders, the priority is the business. if they take time to go into the business, it tends to be number one, what is it that I need to do now in order to stay in the business? So that definitely means regulatory courses, the things that are mandatory and compulsory for their people to have. They need to have a certified safety officer. They need to have, for example, if you're in the water line, you need to have what they call it, certified water engineers and things like that. Certified building site inspector for construction. So those are training that definitely is on the top of the list. And then you will go into things that will help the day-to-day operations. So it could be something like what do you call it? Computer training, Microsoft Access, Microsoft Office, or things like communication skills and things like that. It is not often that business leaders build further down the road because they're looking at the reality of business as it is. Okay, and this is the reality, and that is also a challenge for us, because we would like to build for the future, while most businesses build largely for the present. I'm not saying they don't build for the future, but it's largely for the present. And I think in a way, when you talk about undermining, sometimes business leaders can get caught up in their day-to-day reality, that they fail to see the long-term viability of their business. I mean, I can go into examples, and this would all be cliches, because you've probably heard it 1,000 times already. You're talking about BlackBerry, talking about Nokia, and all of that. But that is the truth. Business models change, technologies change, and I think sometimes if the business, if a leader fails to see all of this, they can be undermining themselves. Because, like I said, the examples are there. Leaders feel that they're doing a very good job by building and consolidating on what they have, but they did not see the hole in the middle of the road, for example. They did not see what was coming. So I believe that, and that is from a human capital development point of view. But if you were to ask me from a general point of view, I think what undermines, when a business leader undermines his or her own business by becoming too focused on something, by failing to see the larger picture, by becoming engrossed in something. This is how I look at it, my point of view. Because then you fail to plan for, and you fail to take into account other things that might be coming. Wow, you're both quiet. Should I?
No, you.
Mala has a very look on the face.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, okay, now where do I dig further? So, I mean, I think when we do leadership program, and there are quite a number of leadership trainers who are viewing the show now, the Captain Shan of the world and Major Prabha, they all do leadership programs,
Hi,
right?
Major.
Like, yeah, right. Captain is there, Major is there, Bhavani is there, Dr. Vicky is there now. Now, I think you in on one hand, you've stated the very obvious thing that even today, I think when we run programs, even at C-1 level, the business trend seems to be survival and not thriving in the business. So you're saying it is operational, because operation is struggling. We're struggling with just keeping the business going on a daily basis. How do we then talk about thriving or sustainability in the future, right? So you are echoing what we are seeing as real struggle, because the aspirations are there, but the reality is another thing, right? And I'm just wondering, and this is coming to me, how do you think we got into the space now that we spend so much of time just surviving, just trying to get every day through? Where could we have done better, you think?
Wow. Okay. Tough question. This, and again, personal point of view, because I have friends and I've seen friends going through this. In a way, I think 2020, excuse my French, screwed it up for all of us. It screwed with our way of thinking. Because 2020, I think, woke a lot of people up to their own mortality. And I think somehow that shifted a lot of people more to survival. Then it becomes with, oh gosh, what if this happens again? How do I ensure that this does not happen? So I think that again, based on personal, a lot of what is happening is in reaction to that. So people are now putting safeguards in place to make sure that, okay, I need to make sure that I survive, and maybe risk taking is not as what do you call it? How do you say it? Risk taking is not too, maybe not something that someone is willing to take up anymore, possibly. And unfortunately, taking risks is the only way you can go for innovation. Taking risks is the only way. Is probably the only way you can make the next big leap in personal development, in business development. So I kind of feel that what happened in 2020 with COVID and the lockdown shifted a lot of people's mindset to become more survival based, more day to day, instead of actually looking out for the next big thing. And in a way, you can also see that's why now there's such a big gap to fill. I mean, in terms of Malaysia, look at what is being said now. There's such a huge gap that we have to fill, and part of this is actually shifting out of this mindset. Maybe we need to start thinking that we need to start taking risks again. Maybe we need to start to stop simply just consolidating and start building again. I mean, that's how I see it based on my conversations with people that I know.
Okay, nice. Thanks. So I think what I'm hearing is that you think the pandemic has totally shaken our probably futuristic thinking, and we're now very grounded with it happened once, it can happen again. Let me just see how best I can survive first. You said that. I'm still processing that because I think for me, and with limited experience, you speak to more leaders. Even before pandemic, in Malaysia, I hear a lot of survival operational challenges as to when we go into business. Of course, leaders are talking about being futuristic. They're talking about how to look forward, the aspirations of the future, right? But people who are, really running the organization tend to be caught up in the day-to-day operation is what I have seen before, but I think it has become really, emphasized a lot more now because, there are less resources, more generally fear to work on. And you also did say about, you said something really I thought was really interesting, is to be focused, have a bigger picture than to be totally focused on, smaller issues as leader. And I can see that tying in. Now, I'm asking your personal opinion because I think you would have met a lot of people, right? From a leadership perspective, what can we do to play catch up as to, if I'm a leader and I'm listening to this conversation and I know that, I think Soffian is right. I need to be focused on a big picture, yes. And I need to take a bit of risk, yes. And I should not go on a survival mode. I need to be, more on thriving. What is that one leadership ability that would help me do that? If I'm listening and I'm thinking, what would your input be for that?
Only one.
You can give many, but let's start with one.
I mean, it's for me. Okay. For me, being a leader boils down to a few things. For me, and one of those important things is not the most important by far, but one of the most important things for me is actually awareness. A leader has to be aware of himself. A leader has to be aware of his internal environment, but and most leaders are, but sometimes a leader has to be aware of the external environment. So it's
Mm.
I know it sounds like that one, but it's what it is. I mean, it's just basically about being aware and looking at what is possible, what is available. It's for me, it boils down to knowledge. There is no how to guide to do something. If not, we would all be entrepreneurs making chunks of money, right? So if you ask me, it is about being aware. So you need to know what is it, what am I, what is my company doing, what are the opportunities that are available, how do I move, because every single organization has its own challenges, has its own environment that they operate in. So there is no answer to anything. There is no one stopgap answer to everything. Yeah, for me, it is the important thing is to just be knowledgeable and to be aware of the surroundings, so that you can grab that opportunity, or at least start to move towards an opportunity when that opportunity arises, or even to create one for yourself. Because end of the day, that is what, for me, that is what it's all about. Risk aversity tends to be too much internal focus. So we are very aware of what is happening inside, but probably maybe not so much aware of what is happening outside. Because I think Malaysia is on the cusp of something exciting. I believe that we are on the cusp of something exciting. And I think that there are many opportunities that are being created and will be created soon. But in order to take opportunity to take advantage of that, I think business leaders, you have to know that those opportunities are there. And end of the day, it's all about educating yourself, keeping yourself informed, and making sure that you are getting, I mean, just having the right information, probably getting the right advice, networking properly, so that you can see when to move, how to move. Is it the best idea to move at this particular point in time? I know it's not something great, like you have to be IT savvy, you have to go into IR 4.0, AI, blah blah blah. For me, it's as simple as just being aware. Because I think that
Nice.
sometimes leadership boils down to very, very fundamental things. I mean, we talk a lot about all of this newfangled stuff, but I believe that leadership boils down to very, very fundamental stuff, and the fundamental stuff is not going to change anytime soon.
Nice.
Well, can I just
Oh,
do a follow-up question?
Sure.
Just one, because yeah, I want to go in a little bit deeper with the awareness, right, of the external environment. So you said we're good with, we need to have self-awareness, we need to be aware of what's happening within the organization internally, and then there's the external environment, right? And before that, you said we need to start taking risks. I think there's a connection. If you're more aware of the external environment, then perhaps your comfort, or your, maybe pushing it, your ability to spot opportunities, spot risks, and balance the thing up may be a lot. A lot more nimble with that, right? Now, if you had it was utopia, you have this wonderful world where anything can happen, right? And you said leaders need to have knowledge of external knowledge. What do you think we should be doing? What do you think leaders should be doing to get that external knowledge? What would you do if you like I have the resources, I have everything, I can do this. What is it that I should be doing to go and get that external knowledge?
Okay. Again, fundamentals. Read,
Mm,
listen, talk to people, network a lot. Let me give you an example of this.
mm,
Let me give you an example. I'm not going to take credit for this. It's something that has already been mentioned before. Let's just talk about something that I definitely know. Sham, Mala, you were part of it. I was part of it. Captain was part of it. Bhavani was part of it. The boot camp. Okay, it might sound small, but it is actually a very good example of being aware of the environment and taking a risk. Because trust me, now it's we are very blasé about it. We can say, yeah, I mean, we knew that it was going to be a big hit. But trust me, I was involved right from the beginning. We had no idea. We had no idea whether we would be able to make an impact and how big of an impact we would have been able to make when we first started the bootcamp, because
mm,
it was crazy. Who is HRD Corp to think that they can teach training providers and trainers? HRD Corp is not a training provider.
mm,
HRD Corp, I mean, this has been thrown at us before. You just manage the fund now. Why you bother about upskilling
mm,
trainers? Why you bother about what training providers are doing? So it was a huge risk at that time. And again, I'm not going to take credit for it. This is all down to Dato Shawul. He saw that there was an opportunity. There was an opportunity, and perhaps there was a need for it, and he
mm,
was willing to take the risk. Of course, he gave it to me to implement it, but that decision was made by him. He saw it, he read it, and I'm sure he got to that decision by talking to a lot of people. I'm sure he made that decision by listening to people, because you would know that he engages a lot with employers, with training providers on the ground. And so that decision was made, and lo and behold, it's what, 6 months, 7 months later, and now everybody talking about how great the bootcamp was. But that is a small example, but I think it is an example. So for me, if you want to, being aware of external, even being aware of external is all about keeping yourself informed. So that means reading. I know it's boring, but that means reading, that means talking to people, that means listening to podcasts, that means watching the news.
mm,
Absorb as much as is possible. Take some time away from Netflix and all of that. But even that can be useful sometimes. But I mean, again, it's fundamentals. It is what it is. End of the day, it's all about just absorbing things, so that when the time comes, you have the necessary knowledge, and shared experiences from other people
mm,
to at least make what do you call it, a balanced judgment on whether you should or you should not do something, on
mm.
whether something should or should not be done. That's again fundamentals.
I like it. We lose sight of fundamentals. I think we look for grandiose ideas or suggestions, when sometimes the problem or the solution is actually very fundamental, right? So between reading, listening, talking, networking, which one is your favorite go-to?
I know I don't know whether you're going to find this difficult to believe. A lot of people find this difficult to believe. For me, the one that's most difficult for me is actually networking. I'm a raging introvert. Networking takes a lot out of me. Most people don't believe it, but it's true. I used to I used to read a lot, but I still try to, but it's not, don't really have time for it. Or I try to find time, but don't really have time for it. So my go-to nowadays is largely oops, sorry. My go-to nowadays is largely podcast,
Listen,
because
podcast.
I podcast, news, BFM, stuff like that.
Mm,
Because I can take it up on the go while I'm driving, or when I'm on the train. But it's a mixture of all of that. When possible, I watch the news. I watch the shows. And while it takes it out of me, I also like engaging and communicating with people. So
mm,
it's a mixture of all. I wouldn't say there's any favorite. It's a mixture of all. It just depends on what any particular point in time, um, what is available to me or what is convenient for me, because I run around a lot.
Yep, we know that that you run around a lot, and I'm not surprised that networking takes the most energy out of you. It takes the most energy out of me as well. Yeah, right. You have to gear up for it. At least for me, lah. I know I have to gear up for something that yeah puts me out there. Okay, Malar, over to you. Enough already. I hogged
Actually, it's
I
now going to sound like all of us planned it and we're saying it together. I find networking really challenging. I know Sham is going to like, oh, really? I know, right? I've been saying this for years, but nobody believes me. I am an extrovert, but I find networking, it's a stretch for me. In fact, it's more of a stress than a stretch. But moving on, two things. I think what I really loved, or what's my biggest takeaway from what you said just now, is that I look at a balance of two things for leaders, right? I think the ability to acknowledge that even as leaders, we are vulnerable. We have fear and we have threats, is what comes out of being aware internally about what's happening with us. And I think that's such an important point, because this is the part, and this is my personal opinion, that a lot of times we expect leaders not to be vulnerable. We expect leaders not to have fear. And so we don't deal or support them in that area. So when we talk about psychological safety, every time we're talking about the psychological safety of the employees at large, we seldom talk about psychological safety of the leaders per se. And you've touched on something that I think is big.
But if you don't mind, Malal, just let me put in something very quickly. Sometimes leaders like to give that persona. Some leaders like to be seen as I'm Superman, whatever. I have no vulnerabilities. I think, and that is also something that maybe some leaders might want to lay off. I don't know. I mean, it depends on personal style. But it's not surprising, because seriously, some leaders want to give off that persona.
Yeah. I think there are two things. I think one is a lot of past programming of what is expected of a leader, right? As to, when we work with leaders and when we look at their profiles, right? And very often when we see leaders who show up in terms of the areas of vulnerability, like, for example, self-esteem, very often the reaction can be pretty negative, because we are rejecting the human side of leaders, that they have their own fears and own difficulties. So that's why I think what you said is it's so central to the conversation that we are having today, which is really, can we become aware of our internal limitations, not just strength, but our limitation. And what you said is that because if we are not paying attention to the threats that we are experiencing, we're going to miss out on the opportunities, which is why we won't take risks. And you've also bridged the two to say that I feel threatened. Yes, that's real. There are opportunities out there that's also real, but now I can bridge it with knowledge. And how I'm going to acquire my knowledge and my leadership development is actually critical in the way I'm going to lead my business. Because the fear is not going to go away. It will be there. But for me to settle in and be grounded, if despite the fear, by knowing and accepting my vulnerabilities, is only through the knowledge and skills that I can acquire. And I need to acquire it very quickly, because things are changing really, really fast. So I loved those parts that you told me. But I just wanted to make a comment. So before I ask you the last question or pass it to Sham, is that actually I'm surprised that people think that HRD Corp is not in the space of telling training providers what to do. I'm surprised, because for me, you have all the data of all the providers and what we do. I won't know how good my competitor is. I won't know how great my collaborator is, because it is limited to less than 10. Whereas you have thousands of providers, you know what they do, you know how effective it is, you know how it has impacted. And I'm thinking like, why would, so that's a comment that came up to me in my head, because I'm thinking you are sitting with a lot of data. It's just processing the data and being courageous to do the right thing for the industry. That is leadership for me, and that's something I just wanted to comment. Do you want to say something? Because I see you.
Nah, I mean that didn't come from me, Mala. I have been told that many times. Trust me.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm glad that you and your team did not listen. I'm glad. I think we all can be experts. We can think we are experts in our space, but you are really looking at the big picture of, what encompasses all of these skills. You're looking at really employers, what they are struggling with, what the nation needs, and how do we move this forward. So you have all of that information, and I'm glad you did what you think is right. Yeah. And yeah, with that, and before I think we do maybe two last questions, right? Now, you've spoken about for leaders how to be ready and how do we bridge this. If there's only one leadership skill that we need to focus on in the next 12 months, let's talk about skill. You spoke about knowledge, you spoke about awareness. If there's only one skill that any leader says, okay, I listen to Soffian and I'm just going to listen to this one bright idea, one skill that I'm going to focus on, what would that be?
Okay. This is easy for me because it's not for the 12 months. You ask me anytime, anywhere, any year, I'll give you the same answer. For me, the most important leadership skill is empathy. Because while I think we've spoken a lot about leaders, about how we prepare ourselves and all that, but again, leadership is a team game. You can't do it alone. And for me, especially nowadays, I mean, I hear a lot about this generational gap, about boomers and Gen X and Gen Z, as if we all come from different planets with different programming. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, we're all humans. We still eat thosai and things like that. I mean, we're all the same. It's just about growing up in different eras, maybe shape the way that we think. That's all. But the core fundamentals are the same. And again, that's why I believe empathy is important, and empathy will continue to be important. Empathy has always been important. Because empathy is the one skill that will allow leaders to actually bond the team together and bring the team together towards a common goal. It is not possible to do this, again, for me. Some might disagree, but for me, it is not possible to do it without empathy. Because the word leader says it all. You are leading. You're not moving on your own. You're leading a group of people. In order to lead a group of people, you have to be at least understandable to their own challenges and what they are doing. Because it makes no sense charging alone with a bunch of people who don't really want you. First chance they get, they're out. So for me, empathy is really important for you. Number one, to understand your team so that you can build on their various strengths, so that you can harness their individual strengths, so that you can maybe negate as much as possible any challenges that they're having, and come up with realistic what do you call it, realistic and exciting targets and realistic sorry, I said realistic already, sorry, targets that you all can move towards, that the whole team can strive and work for, because without that, I don't think that's possible. I mean, I have worked under leaders like this, by the way, in the past, some time ago. Guys who think that again, Superman, I can do no wrong, I know everything. Who the hell are you? And it doesn't work, because while some people in front of you say that they are behind you, okay, somehow that doesn't come out right. But okay, whatever. In front of you, they're saying that they have your back. But push comes to shove, they're gone. You need empathy in order to build a team, and again, the word says it all. You need empathy in order to lead. So 12 months, 12 years, 12 decades, anytime, anywhere, for me, the leadership skill will always be empathy.
Nice. Thanks. I know I said I'm going to pass it to Sham, but I'm just going to read 2 comments and 1 question for you, and I promise I'll pass it back to Sham to conclude. Go Ashok, who's our third host, who was dying to interview you, and I didn't give in to that because I wanted to check. No, we said no to him. He said, "Wow, that's insightful. Humanity has become more risk averse since 2020." For the comment you made earlier, about being risk averse. And now he's saying psychological safety for leaders is key. This has not been spoken about enough. Thank you, Ashok, for echoing what we are talking about. And I really loved your very emotionally intelligent answer about why empathy is important for us to really gather the people, to listen to them, to know what they are feeling, because these feelings are going to drive us towards our action, which then leads to the common goal that we're talking about. So very emotionally intelligent. But I'm going to just dig deeper and ask you this one magic question, and hopefully, you can guide us into that. Is that in your experience, right? Because empathy is spoken about everywhere. There's just so much of stuff going on around empathy. What do you think is our greatest fear to empathize?
Okay. I guess this is probably from a Malaysian point of view. I don't know, or maybe it's an ASEAN point of view. I'm not sure. You mentioned earlier, Mala, about and I think it's always been said that leadership is lonely. Leadership is because you're alone. A lot of that, and like I said, a lot of leaders tend to want to give this persona that they are untouchable, that they are not to be questioned, that they know everything, they can do anything, and I think a lot of it is down to our social programming. I really believe that in a lot of ways that was how we were brought up. So if that is how we have been programmed, and that is the persona that we want to give, it can be very frightening in order for you to open up and empathize with people. Because empathy would require you to see things from people's point of view. And what people think about you might not be the best thing. Empathy actually means reaching out and saying, okay, I've done something to piss this person off. She's not saying anything. He or she is not saying anything, but I know I've done something wrong. And that can be really scary for some people. Of course, there is a thing as too much empathy, but let's not go there yet. But what I'm saying is it just because of that? I believe that it is a societal thing. This is how we've been programmed. Too many of our leaders feel that they have to be untouchable and they have to be on a pedestal away. I don't quite agree that leadership has to be lonely, by the way, but that is how a lot of people feel it. The moment someone becomes a leader, they feel I can no longer eat with the team. I have to be on my own. I cannot socialize with my former colleagues or anymore. And because of that, you create a gap, and when you have that gap, it can become very scary to empathize.
Nice. Thank you. Nice. If you didn't see, I give you loads of love signs when you said
it.
Yes. And one if you didn't look like love. And Vanisri says, I'm smiling knowing that it's coming from the close circle of people who are close to the policymakers. Thank you very much, Vanisri. With that, Sham, I give you the power to ask the last question and close. Thank you very much for your response.
She's very generous with her power towards the end of a program, I think I'd like to close with this question. In your mind, working in the work that you do with HRD Corp, right, and the people that you speak with, and you engage with the stakeholders, what is that one superpower that you think leaders in Malaysia have that gives them an edge compared to leaders in countries that are close by? Neighboring countries. Okay. What's the superpower for Malaysian leaders? Yeah.
Okay. Superpower that Malaysian leaders have. This is going to sound funny because I've just spoken a hell of a lot about this, but in a way, I believe that, and I see it now. It might not have been so true in the past, but I do see now that based on my own experience and based on the friends that I know and all of that, Malaysian leaders tend to stay close to the ground. Malaysian leaders tend to have what they call it, have their hand on the pulse of the ground. Well, most of those that I know anyway. And like I say, it's funny talking about empathy and all that, but I do think that a lot of Malaysian leaders actually do have empathy. And I think that bodes well for a lot of Malaysian organizations and Malaysian companies. Again, purely based on what I know. But if you ask me, the one superpower that they have, that would be my answer, based on the people that I know, based on the people that I meet.
Nice. Okay. And I love that answer. And I come from that question because I think sometimes we can be our worst critic and when we or we have very clear sights and we kind of want, it's good to know what it is that we also bring to the table in terms of that power skill. So thank you for sharing. And it's a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, there's empathy is the one that we need to focus on, that's going to make a little bit of a differentiator. At the same time, we have that it's being more aware and being more deliberate about it when we are in a leadership position. I mean, that's what I think I'm taking away from it. Thank you so much, Soffian, for being with us. I know you've got a packed schedule, and you are always on the go. But to give us your 1 hour, I am very, very grateful.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's been a blast. I've loved whatever little time we spent together. I've loved talking to the both of you, and it has been very fun, and I guess it also very, well, what's the word am I looking for? I learned a few things. Put it that way. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. We will have coffee with you one day and find out what is it that you learned from us, but we'll keep that on a separate.
Sure.
We have just want to show this Ulrika Brunner, who says, so good to see you all here. Soffian definitely possesses the superpower he described.
Yeah. Hi, Ulrika. I haven't seen you for quite some time. Maybe we should catch up.
There you go. The people, your fans are joining us. So thank you once again. We're going to just move you to the backstage while Malhar and I close the program. Thanks so much, Sophia. Any last words for our viewers out there before we do that?
No, I guess I just think that we're all wonderful people with wonderful lives, and I just want to thank everyone for your time. I know 6 to 7 is not the greatest of times, but maybe it's preferable to sitting in a car in a jam, or maybe some of you are in a car in the jam. But I would like to thank all of you for taking the time. So just continue to be awesome. I think we all have our challenges, and we all try every day, strive to do the best that we can. So continue to do that. Take care. Give me a holler if we should ever meet. Thank you.
All right, very nice. Thank you, Soffian. I'm going to put you down to the backstage. Wow. There we go, Malhar. Okay. Whew. 1 hour. That was fast. I mean, at least for me, it was fast, lah. But poor Soffian might have other thoughts about it. But yeah. Let me get this. Malhar, you are. Can't unmute you. Okay, got you. Now we got you.
I'm unmuted. All right.
That was a stretch for you, right?
I don't know why. I was wondering why you are sighing, because I think Soffian should be sighing for all the difficult questions you asked him.
Oh yeah, I asked him. Very nice. But I love today's segment. What I loved about it was that I think it was nice speaking about a country. And it was nice looking at it from a country perspective, which is not something we have done before.
Country.
Yeah, your country. And
My
it's something
country.
different. Yes, it's your country. Yes, it's your country. And on that note, since it's your country, wrap it up, Malar.
Thank you very much. I'm always, I think, so my heart gets warmed up whenever we speak about Malaysia, and when we speak about Malaysia proudly. And today I'm very proud because my partner used the word "we" all the time. Which means that you are also part of the country now, which I'm grateful for. Captain Chan says, "Thank you, Shamini Malar, for the great question and for creating the space, and Sofyan for sharing your wisdom." Yeah, and yes, and today, Shamini also used the word love. Shamini usually very objective. So today, Sofyan brought the love out of her, and she actually used it in the program publicly. So those are things that's really warming my heart. But I would say that it's really wonderful, like what Vanisri said, to have the likes of Sofyan to come into the show and share with us their vision and how they're connecting the dot for the purpose, and exactly why we do leadership in Flow Asia, to raise the voice of our great leadership thinking. And I think Sofyan today has helped us to reflect on, we can talk about great things, but let's get the fundamentals right. Let's be grounded, be aware, and make the most out of the role that's being given to us. With that, I really want to thank everybody who's come on board, supported us all throughout, especially today listening to Sofyan. If you're in the learning space, you know that this is an important conversation. So with that, this is Malar signing off from Cambodia.
And Shamini from Singapore, as usual. Bye, everyone. See you next week.